morning, good afternoon, good evening. This last few days, we've seen a lot of articles being circulated on social media regarding the events, the tragic events of 2008, the barbarism of Operation Mavhotera Papi, when Zanu PF had lost the March vote and they had to come up with how to recover. I think it is good that we should remember the barbarism of 2008. But I think it is even more important that we ask ourselves, why is it that the violence, the blatant cheating is still hanging over our heads like the sword of Damocles to this day? I'd like to play a short clip of a film made by Hopo Chinono on the barbarism of 2008.
Journalist and filmmaker. I had the cruel privilege of having a front row seat, witnessing my country descend into a violent village. People were beaten up and some were even murdered for simply practicing a basic human right to vote for a leader of their own choice. This film is a record of what I saw.
In 2008, there can be no doubt that violence has now become the only method of campaigning.
It's painful for my family. People who are so innocent, who don't even know what politics is all about, being brutalized.
We can't rush to say, the X is the one, that will change the destiny of this country. The British wants to use backdoor politics to try and recolonize Zimbabwe. And we're saying, no, that will not happen.
The children's room is up there, and they went to the door of the children's room and they were trying to terrorize the children.
I was shivering. Scared. Yes. I was also scared.
We believe in ideas, but if everything comes to the extreme, our weapons will defend our ideas.
It's not allowed. What you trying to do? Bring violence? Whoa.
He is 85 years old.
This is the nightmare of 2008. Benjamin.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. You know, the images and the events are still fresh in our minds. You know, the trauma can never just, disappear. If you were there, you were exposed to it. You carry that scar in your mind and in your heart. It's something that just doesn't disappear. And up to today, it's still fresh in our memories. A lot of people died for a meaning, their right to vote wherever they wish to and forever who, they wish to. And Zanu PF made sure that people knew their place, that they are supposed to take their way or the highway. It was a very, very dark place for Zimbabwe. I think, that we could say that would have been the darkest place that we have ever been since, the Chimurenga War. And we should, commemorate this day for those that lost their lives, those that, got injured in the process. Some carry the scars up to today. Some lost, family members, friends, fathers, mothers. It's a very, very sad day, and we should remember it.
Well, what happened that year was probably initially the March vote was the closest that the country had ever got to holding free, fair, and credible elections. SADC had put in a lot of pressure on Zanu PF to make sure that that election was free, fair, and credible. But when the results of the March vote started coming in, and Zanu PF realized they were losing, that's when hell broke loose. Mnangagwa himself even boasts about it, intervened to stop the results being announced. And then it took the next 6 weeks to announce the results, recounting 5 million votes. The presidential elections results were the last ones to be announced, and they had time to whittle down Tsvangirai's lead to 47%, just enough to force the runoff. There have been reports that Mugabe himself wanted to go, but he was put under enormous pressure by Mnangagwa and Chiwenga, among others, to stay on. They then launched the Operation Mavhotera Papi, whose primary purpose was to punish the people for having rejected Zanu PF. Here is Mugabe talking on that during the runoff period, boasting of his own role in it.
Kana ini ndakakaisa bhairo panapa ndinochikanda pasi ndoti vakomana kwatakabva.
That was the green light for Operation Mavhotera Papi, in which Zanu PF operative, militias, war veterans were involved, backed by the army, the police, the CIO, and they committed the atrocities, some of the worst that the country has ever seen. That is the tragedy of Operation Mavhotera Papi. It was so bad that for the first time, both SADC and the AU election observers refused to recognize Zanu PF as the victors and forced them into the GNU. And I like to underline the primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms to ensure elections, future elections, will be free, fair, and credible, so that we don't have a repeat of the blatant cheating and the wanton violence of 2008. The tragedy here is that no meaningful reforms were implemented. And hence the reason why Zanu PF post the 2008 to 2013 GNU was able to continue to blatantly rig the elections and threaten with violence to stay in power. This is the tragedy that we must talk about.
I have to agree with you. You know, we can look at the event, but we must look at what happened post that event and get an analysis out of it, and a true analysis out of it. Rightfully, you said SADC refused, you know, to grant ZANU PF political legitimacy. This gave birth to the GNU. And the disappointing part is that after, you know, this was done, and, you know, the opposition, which was then MDC, had every opportunity to call for reforms. They were even reminded about the reforms. So they had no excuse whatsoever for not doing anything about the reforms. They actually went to an extent of reporting SADC, a SADC member, to Mugabe to say this here person is worrying us about reforms. This just shows that these are the type of people that we had trusted. These are the people that we had believed that they were, you know, the way out of this mess, out of this ZANU PF created mess. And unfortunately, up till today, a lot of people do not even understand why we had a GNU in the first place. A lot of people do not understand that there was absolutely nothing stopping MDC from tabling reforms. There was absolutely nothing that stopped MDC from walking out of that GNU whenever they felt that it was not fair. In fact, MDC was an equal partner in that GNU, and they could have refused if it was unfair. And it would have gone back to the table to discuss it all over again. We trust, we give everything. We should expect, at the very least, that they should be accountable. That whoever is put in public office is accountable. And we must not be the ones to shield them. The MDC let the people of Zimbabwe down. Period.
I think one of the things I find tragic here is the very fact that when the government of national unity was formed, given the backdrop of the wanton violence during the runoff, one does not have to underline and emphasize that the primary purpose of the GNU was to implement the democratic reforms, to stop the barbarism of the 2008 elections happening again. Because these are the people who had just seen it firsthand. Some of the leaders were themselves victims of that barbarism. And yet, as soon as they were sworn into office, the MDC leaders forgot about the reforms. We cannot deny that Zanu PF, Robert Mugabe, bribed Morgan Tsvangirai and his fellow MDC leaders with the trappings of high office, and they forgot about the reforms. I think to keep on sweeping that under the carpet is one of the biggest mistakes that we have done as a people. Because as much as SADC has got its own weakness, during the GNU, SADC leaders, particularly South Africa's Minister Lindiwe Zulu, did push for the reforms to be implemented. Credit where credit is due. And when SADC leaders realized that Zimbabwe was going into the 2013 elections without any meaningful reforms, they actually called a special SADC summit in Maputo, June 2013, where they advised Morgan Tsvangirai and company that don't go into these elections without reforms. Morgan Tsvangirai and company ignored the warning. We can't blame SADC for the fact that the GNU failed to end the nightmare of Operation Mavhotera Papi. We have to look at Morgan Tsvangirai and his colleagues and blame them for what happened. I find it really tragic that some people out there still continue to celebrate the barbarism or to remember the barbarism of 2008, and yet conveniently pretend to forget that that was a golden opportunity for us to implement the reforms, and we failed to do so. As long as we pretend that we did nothing wrong, we will continue to have this problem hanging over our heads. And we'll be helpless to do anything about it. Because Zanu PF is not going to reform itself out of office. Zanu PF will continue to exercise that option of blatantly cheating and, if need be, use violence. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
In closing, I would want to say, yes, someone can forget something, but the moment they are reminded, they are no longer forgetful. They are choosing not to. And MDC Triple C decided not to implement reforms, not because of the army, not because of Zanu PF. They had the opportunity. They were there in parliament. They were there in the GNU. They were warned. They refused. And up till today, they don't talk about reforms. When they do talk about it, it's part of a long sentence. It's not what they want. The number one thing they want is for us to participate in rigged elections over and over again, such that they benefit from it. They walk away with $40,000 loans for MPs, housing allowances, cars, you name it. They are benefiting from participating in rigged elections. Then my question that I leave each and every one of you is, what are you benefiting from participating in these rigged elections? Nothing. So I say, if there are no reforms, there should be no elections. Period. Non-negotiable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. I think that point cannot be overemphasized. The truth of the matter is, when MDC guys failed to implement any meaningful reforms during the GNU, they gave up on reforms and started telling the people the lie that they don't need the reforms. They, the opposition, can devise ways of winning rigged elections. And hence, since the GNU, the country has been participating in flawed elections, believing one or more of the lies by the opposition that they will win because they have devised ways of stopping Zanu PF rigging. 2023, Nelson Chamisa told the people that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Triple C was going to win big. Hashtag God is in it. He even invoked the name of God. That was a lie. I think we need to wake up to the reality that this nonsense of winning rigged elections is only helping Zanu PF stay in power. Because Zanu PF will never lose an election in which they have got carte blanche powers to rig. So I come back to what I said at the beginning. We must remember the barbarism of Operation Mavhotera Papi of 2008. But it will be amiss if we also do not remember that the blatant cheating and the wanton violence of 2008 still hangs over our head because we have failed to implement the democratic reforms. Because MDC, Triple C have sold out in implementing the democratic reforms. We cannot afford to go into 2028 and be conned into believing that the opposition can win rigged elections. That is the message that must be hammered home. Thank you very much for those of you who were able to join us this afternoon, and I hope you'll be able to do it again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. Good night.